Welcome to episode 74 of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast with Nick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host, and the season is officially over. 2025 done and dusted. Well, at least for the home and away season, that is. We've finally surpassed our last. I know I said this all last week, but we've finally actually done because the reschedule game has been done. The official AFL awards have been handed out. So All Australian has been done. We will recap that. We'll also talk about the individual awards coming from that. We'll also talk about our own All Australians and how that compares to the actual list. We've got a ton of retirees to talk about. We might mention a couple of delistings at the same time, and then we'll recap the AFLW up to this point. We will obviously preview round one of the finals, and any other little tidbits we need to get into. But let's jump right in with how are you doing, Mr. Sarek?
Not too bad, not too bad. I am better. So I got a bit out and about this week because as I said, felt a bit better. And sort of regretted it on Sunday when I saw the absolute domination that was North Melbourne against Freo in the W. That was it was brutal.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be.
Very nice day out. And what made it even worse actually was going to do my pre-game ritual, going to the Fremantle markets, find my little stall, go there, and popcorn merchant isn't there anymore. I couldn't get my bag of popcorn before the game.
That's really sad.
There was other stuff there. I mean, kinda. I didn't really need any more food, so I could have just found something else, but I didn't because I had lunch beforehand. So
that's fair enough.
As I said, I will miss it. Caramel popcorn, sweet and sour popcorn, all gone.
That sounds really nice.
Oh, sweet and salty, I should say. Was sweet? I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway,
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So I'll miss you, popcorn dude.
For me, I mentioned last week that I couldn't really talk about my plans this weekend. I can now that it's all done. I flew up to Queensland to surprise family and my cousin for her 30th birthday. No one knew that me and my family were going up there. So it was a really nice surprise. It was good to see everyone and catch up with everyone after not seeing some of them for like over 12 years. So that was really nice. And then others like I'd seen like a couple of years ago. So it was still good to see everyone that lives up there in Queensland, all of my family. I didn't get to go see like the friends side of people because I was down on the Gold Coast rather than in Brisbane as I normally am, and I'm up in Queensland. But that's okay, next time. But otherwise, I got back today as we're recording this. In fact, I landed like 2 hours ago. So just been a little bit of a rush to get back home and have some sort of energy in me so we could record. Because I'm not available Tuesday this week, so we had to make sure we got it done today. But Willie, I think we'll lock in. So we may as well just jump straight into our first bit, which is actually just a brief recap of the rescheduled game. The obviously game from round 0 moved to round 24 between the Suns and the Bombers at People First Stadium up on the Gold Coast. And with a 95-point margin, to no one's surprise, the Gold Coast Suns won out and officially booked their ticket to finals with 23, 15, 153 to 8, 10, 58.
Got me a maximum of 10 tips as well, which was really nice.
You somehow managed to perfect round the 10 game round.
Well, the only flaky one was Port Adelaide because obviously no one was going to tip Port Adelaide except for me. So sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it pays off. I got to get that in me. But I did not tip Essendon over the Suns, which I'm very glad about. Because while there were a few nervous Gold Coast fans after last week, this game ended up being the dampest of squibs as there was almost no tension from the get-go as the Suns piled on 7-4 to 1 goal in the first quarter and it never looked back. This game was dead in the water on arrival. Unlike last week, transition was a lot easier for the Suns. 10-7 coming from the back half and a whopping 50% of back half movement turning into inside 50s. Gold Coast didn't even need to chip it around. It was straight turnover into chains. that burst inside where the Tolls of the Suns dunked on a ravaged Dons defense. Pretty much out of Toll defenders. Ben King leading with 6 marks inside 50, and Blaze will tell you how many goals he kicked.
Yes.
Farah and Long also joined them with 4 marks inside 50, with the final count being 26-9. Essendon were actually okay at contest and clearance, but were cut off in their chains for the easy score the other way. I think Gold Coast got about 107 of their scores from turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they were probably just felt like they were forced out there when they could have been putting this season to bed, because yeah, they didn't look that enthusiastic to be there on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think if this game was played at the start of the season like it was meant to, it could have been an entirely different affair. Again, Essendon wouldn't have had, the huge amount of injuries that they currently still have. And the Suns, we didn't know what they were going to show as of yet. Again, when they came out of the gates in round 1, it kind of surprised everyone. So we could have seen that a lot earlier. We could have seen the Suns be competitive a lot earlier. The Bombers be competitive a lot earlier. But yeah, it just felt like a slog because everyone knew how unsighted it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was just one of those ones where I think it was sort of still good that a fair few people rocked up for it, but yeah, a lot of it was just celebrating the Suns' first foray into the finals.
It was. So we're just going to quickly run through the individuals because we'll talk a bit more about the Suns later on in the episode. So I'm going to start with Ben King, who was a sharpshooter, as you had mentioned. He kicked 7-1 from 8 disposals, meaning every touch he had was a score, even if it wasn't entirely accurate. 6 marks, all of them inside 50, of course, and therefore 8 score involvements as well, being all of his own scores. For Joel Jeffrey, he was fantastic in defense. I know, right? He finished with 20 touches, all of them effective, according to 100% efficiency. 4 marks, 4 inside 50s, 7 score involvements, 10 1%ers, 8 spoils, and 587 meters gained. And then captain Noah Anderson was absolutely excellent, kicking 3 goals from 34 disposals, 27 of them effective, according to 79.4% efficiency, 18 contested possessions, 6 intercepts, 5 inside 50s, 12 clearances, 8 score involvements, 2 1%ers, 12 ground ball gets, and 634 meters gained. On the Bombers side of things, Jai Menzie, who was unfortunately also delisted as of recording this, literally like 2 hours ago. So it's not been a great week for him. He was leading scorer for the Bombers, slotting 3 goals from 10 touches, 6 marks, 5 score involvements, 3 tackles, and 18 pressure acts. And Archie Roberts competed well, collecting 29 disposals, 7 contested possessions, 6 marks, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 5 score involvements, 4 tackles, 17 pressure acts, and 585 meters gained. On the injury side of things, Mike Gelfie went off with a corked calf, and Todd Goldstein came out with concussion. So thankfully they're not playing finals, otherwise he would not be able to play. And on the MRO side of things, Bailey Humphrey was fined $1,875 for engaging in a melee. Archie Roberts was fined $1,000 for said melee. And Ethan Reed was fined $2,000 for rough conduct against Saad Al-Houli.
Hey, round 23 and a half, and there's no contact with the umpire.
I feel like this was mostly a bruise-free kind of game where they also managed to avoid shoving each other into umpires.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to say that was an interesting point about Jai Menzie, because I would say there's a few players that I reckon have been delisted after getting a few goals in their last game, but it would have to be a very small club. But yeah, very unfortunate.
That's definitely one for useless AFL stats. The fun little Facebook page.
Yeah,
who does all that sort of
most
stuff.
goals before being delisted.
Definitely worth a question. All right, we're gonna jump over now to our All Australian picks. Obviously, during the week prior, the All Australian 44 and then the full team was announced, as well as the other awards available for the AFL players. Not like the Brownlow or like Goal of the Year or Mark of the Year. That's done on Brownlow night, obviously. But these are all like the player voted ones and the coaches voted awards. So we're going to start off with your All Australian team. So why don't you run through it?
We're not going to start with the actual All Australian?
No, I figure we'd do ours first. Kind of a little. Actually, yeah, we'll do yours first. We'll do ours first.
All right. Okay, I gotta get in mind then. So in my back line, I have put get out of here. Sorry, I'm just mucking around with Google Docs. Nick Vlaston, Carl Wilkie, and Josh Worrell. In my halfback line, I have Nasai Wangani Malira, Jordan Clark, Lockie Ash. In my centre region, I have Zach Bailey and Hugh McCluggage on the wings. I know McCluggage isn't a winger, but I've done what everyone else has done and put in there. Ed Richard in the centre. Half forward, I have Ben Keys, Jeremy Cameron, and Keziah Pickett. Full forward, I have Jamie Elliott, Riley Thilthorpe, and Jack Gunston. In my centres, I have Max Gawn, Noah Anderson, Marcus Bontempelli, and on my interchange, I have Luke Jackson, Bailey Smith, and Bailey Dale, and Isaac Heaney.
I think your list is very excellent. I really, really like how you structured yours. And you didn't just make it like a midfielder's affair either, because you put Luke Jackson in there who can play all ends.
Yeah, as I said, I like to have a bit of it, and that's again sort of my thing with putting Zach Bailey on the wing and having that half forward. As I said, Keziah Pickett doing the mid forward. Otherwise, I would have been tempted to put Zach Butters, but I think Keziah Pickett's had a all round better year. Ben Keys as a bit more of a goal sneak distributor. Jamie Elliott playing that deep forward, and obviously the versatility of Thilthorpe and the marking and goaling brilliance of Jack Gunston.
Yes.
I think this is a very evenish team. Probably like half a, you know what I mean? It's always like a typical All-Australian where like your fullbacks are technically 3 really tall and backs are 3 very small, but
yeah,
Jordan Clark's a decent defender, so he can probably do smalls, and Vlaston's versatile if you're making it a real team.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't for Boston, we probably would have lost a lot more games than we did. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, as I said, it does mean there was 2 because as I said, it was a pretty good year for fullbacks. So I said I put Carl Wilkie in. He wasn't even in the squad, which I still find amazing.
He was in the
I
mid-season
was
squad and
tossing
then
up.
just got shoved out in the second half.
Yeah, like there's not much difference between Wilkie, Worrell, Collins, and Andrews, in my opinion. So I would take any of them. I'd probably disagree the most with Wiedering. I don't think he had that great a year, but yeah, that was probably the most contested place. Everyone else, I think, well, except the midfielders, as I said, my controversial thing is I didn't put Jordan Dawson in the team,
Oh, yeah.
which again, it's more just football use, and I actually think he had a bit more of an inconsistent year than what other people were saying. He had an excellent middle patch. There was no doubt he was the best midfielder in that middle part of the season, but he did have a very slow start and a few games in the middle where he was just existing. So a bit harsh, but he would have been the next one I would have picked. So he's not that far off. Same with Caleb Sarong too.
Yeah, like this was surprisingly a really tough year for quite a few positions because
Yeah.
because we have such the teams, especially in the top 8, top 9, was so well balanced in a lot of areas that it was
Yeah,
really hard to
exactly.
kind of determine who goes where.
And then you also have the flip side where a lot of the bottom teams just had 1 or 2 star players. Like they were like off the back of the one. Like Saints backline was obviously Wilkie and a massive chasm. Vloston stood out in a struggling Tigers defense because on paper not too bad, but just had to defend a lot. And then you have who else is from a struggling team? Cosy Pickett, Max Gawn too. Pretty much self-explanatory. Oliver and Petrarca had very ordinary years, so and Isaac Heaney obviously leading the goal kicker for the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, exactly. It was really hard to even just from the teams that were struggling to find a spot for them, even though we knew they were superstars. Like Heaney, for an example, like he carried Sydney through a lot of that, and
Yeah,
like and Cosy, was pretty much leading goal kicker for a while. Max Gawn doing everything that Max Gawn normally does, that sort of thing. For my list, I was very controversial. Because I put technically 3 rocks and no Bontempelli.
yeah.
And no Heaney either, for that fact. So I'll run through mine. For my fullbacks, I've got Nick Vlauston, Harris Andrews, and Jordan Clark. My halfbacks, I've got Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, Sam Taylor, and Max Holmes. For my centres, I've got Jordan Dawson, Jack Crisp, and Noah Anderson. Half forwards, I've got Ben Keys, Jeremy Cameron, and Toby Green. Full forwards, I've got Jack Gunston, Riley Thilthorpe, and Jamie Elliott. I know, 2 Collingwood players? How shocking of me. In fact, I've got 3. For my followers, I've got Brodie Grundy, Josh Dacos, and Matt Rowell. And on the interchange, I've got Tristan Sherry, Finn Callaghan, Luke Jackson, and Cal Wilkie.
Why have you got Josh Dacos in the followers?
I don't know. I wanted to try and fit him in somewhere, so I just put him in the followers.
I was gonna say you could probably put him on the wing.
I probably could
Noah
put him on the
Anderson's
wing.
there, but it's probably just you did it on your phone in a rush sort of thing.
Yeah,
but,
pretty much. I was just trying to figure out where to put him.
Yeah, no, that's all right. But yeah, no, it's fair. Yeah, so it's sort of hard for me for Collingwood. Jack Crisp, I would have said, is a bit too much on the first half of the year, but probably, again, if you're going a bit more outside rather than inside, he probably deserves a wing spot over, well, he deserves it over more than Jordan Dawson, who you put there, but...
I would have swapped them. Realistically, I should have swapped them.
Yeah, exactly. Then the inside midfielder that normally goes on the wing, which this year was McCluggage.
Yes.
Yeah, Tobias is interesting. I thought he was relatively okay. But as I said, it's always so hard because he's had these like very underrated seasons where he's just done what's expected of him. And then you look at the stats and it's like, yeah, no, he's like near top for a lot of things still. I do like Max Holmes in there, even though technically unfortunately, it was just like the odd thing where he should have got halfback last, but he technically should be considered an inside midfield this year.
Yeah, so, I agree. He played a lot more midfield time this year, rotating with Stewart and Atkins and anyone else who could really like get time into the halfback. So yeah, Geelong has been very versatile in that this year. I wanted Sam Taylor in there just because I like Sam Taylor, but I wanted to put Harris Andrews at my fullback, so I was like, you can fit it a halfback, you'll be fine.
I will say back in Sam Taylor, I did forget him when I was mentioning the 3 just short when I was saying that there was a very tough 5 to pick from. He definitely was in that. I just forgot to mention him.
That's very fair. All right, let's just jump over now to the actual All-Australian team, the one that was actually selected. So I'll go pretty much from the top down. At our fullback list, it's Josh Battle, Sam Taylor, Jordan Clark. At our halfbacks, it's Bailey Dale, Harris Andrews, and Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller. Hey, look, they had both in their list as well. For the centres, they had Bailey Smith, Jordan Dawson, Hugh McCluggage. Half forwards was Isaac Heaney, Jeremy Cameron, and Zach Bailey. Full forwards were Jack Gunston, Riley Thilthorpe, and Cossie Pickett. Followers was Max Gawn, Ed Richards, Noah Anderson, and on the interchange bench, it's Caleb Sarong, Nick Dacos, Matt Rowell, and Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah, and as I said, it's not a bad team. The only thing is, they should have just turfed another midfielder. You can't have 4 midfielders on the interchange. You have to make a tough call somewhere. As I said, I put Jordan Dawson out. He would have been next cab off the rank. I'm still tossing up whether Dacos had... I still think to me, I would have him over Josh Dacos, but in terms of again, if you consider Josh an outside midfielder, you know what I mean? Then you technically reevaluate him a bit more, but...
Yeah.
As I said, just midfielders get a lot in life. You're going to make the tougher calls. Put a few more in. I'd rather Elliott get in over Dacos, you know what I mean? That was probably the biggest one where Elliott pretty much single-handedly kicked most of Collingwood's score. We didn't really talk about much. His goal scoring sort of dried up near the end. Not by much, but... And then, Collingwood's offense went... So...
Yeah, it was a mix of that, their defense falling apart. It hasn't really looked good for them for the past couple of months.
No. So, And, as I said, I'm happy Sarong's in there. I do think that Yeah, it got a bit quiet occasionally, but yeah, as I said, he was very close. Same with Rao in my list. So, yeah. Battle, obviously, the one that we both didn't pick, which I think is the only one that
I didn't
neither of
I
us
didn't pick
picked
Bailey
that's on this
Dale.
list. No, neither.
Oh,
I
neither.
picked Dale.
Um,
Oh yeah, Battle and Dacos and so
Battle
on.
and Dacos. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Battle. Very good year. Sort of hard player to rate because he doesn't get much ranking points, but you can tell his influence in Hawthorn's backline.
Mm.
It's just sort of a weird one where I think he had a very good role. It was just sort of hard to tell what was structure and what was individual. But I don't mind him in there.
No, I think having him in there is pretty good actually, considering the fact that they were like very much at risk of falling out of the 8 and not making finals at all. Hawthorn. I felt like one part of their defense had to kind of be represented.
Yeah, exactly. So should we go on to the individuals awards?
Yes, so the Players Association did their individual awards as well, with their MVP going to Nick Dacos, to pretty much no one's surprise, to be honest. I mean, when you're averaging 30 touches and 6 clearances per match, it's pretty nuts as a midfielder.
Yeah, as I said, it thought like he was dropping off all Australian, and then he had that pretty insane back half of the year when Collingwood were pretty much crap. So it's sort of weird. Like maybe that's like a bad thing when he goes all out because it means that he's trying to pick up for some deficiencies there. But yeah, as I said, I think that's why, even though I don't think he's had the best year, I can understand him winning Players Association because he plays a very, very smart role in that Collingwood side. So
He does.
get a lot of respect.
Absolutely. Their best first year player was Murphy Reid, which was very well deserved. He's been absolutely outstanding for Fremantle this year.
Again, my shoe in for a Rising Star. I don't really care if anyone else gets it, but for me, it's Murphy Reid far and away, as I've probably stated before.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you that I think Murphy Reid is likely the one to win it. I don't think like Levi Ashcroft has done all that much in compared to other Rising Star nominees. So I think I think Murphy Reid is probably the one on top, I would say.
Yeah, as I said, Dan Curtin's the only other one that I would really, really have up there. There's a few good, like, solid ones when you look at, like, he would be fifth, but, you know, I always forget who's in the Rising Star contention, but then you look at them and it's like, oh, yeah, they had a pretty solid year. It's just Murphy Reid has had what will go down as one of the best first year small player forward years in the competition.
Yeah, that's right.
In history.
Onto the most courageous award, and that went to Josh Dunkley, one very, very excellent on baller, and has just been pretty much throwing himself at packs all season long.
Yep. Yeah, as I said, pretty tough nut player in a tough nut team.
Mm-hmm.
I always think most courageous player just gets like tossed around a bit, you know what I mean? It's like I don't think like there's any threshold like where you have to cross in a year, you know what I mean? They're
I
just
think
like,
it's
oh, this
mostly
person
targeted
hasn't
at
won.
like players who are really good on ball, who are willing to take courageous marks, make that risky play.
Yeah,
that
you know
sort
what I
of thing.
mean, but it's not an award that you really win twice.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't think there's been any 2-year winners.
At the moment, I don't think so. Best captain was awarded to Jordan Dawson, which I'm not like too surprised about either, because he's led Adelaide from, you know, really struggling last season after their clutches at finals slipping away in previous seasons, to putting him top of the table.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, I have no disagreements with this. As I said, I think some of his ball use and on-field performance means it's not as good a year as other people have said, but there's no doubt he's one of the most influential players in that team. When he gets going, he brings a lot of players with him. And Adelaide just seems like a very cohesive team at the moment, so that makes perfect sense.
And then Best Young Player Award, which everyone has a bit of a laugh at because he's 28 years of age. But Sean Manor from the Cats won the award. because it's based on the player's first 2 seasons. Again, he was a mature age recruit. Had formerly played under Richmond's VFL side. Actually played in the 2017 VFL Grand Final. Fun fact. But yeah, that's just really funny. He's 28 and won a Best Young Player.
Yeah, I know it, like, not many people are going to get this, but remember the Grammys, an artist called Bon Iver, who'd been making music for about 10-ish years up until that point, winning Best Upcoming Artist at the Grammys. And it was just sort of a bit of a funny one. Twitter was coming up is who TF is Bonnie Bear. It was pretty funny, and I think this is like another example of it. Is just like, it's clear what this, because this award sort of goes to like people who are ineligible for the Rising Star.
Yeah.
But aren't, you know what I mean? Like, that is sort of still like a 1 or 2 year player. That's done really well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is what it is. He's a really good player though.
He is. He's definitely like very, very key part of Geelong's system. But jumping over to the last award, the actual Coaches Association Champion Player of the Year, and it's a tie. It was a tie between Noah Anderson and Bailey Smith, which, yeah, I agree with that. They've both been fantastic players all season long.
Yeah, as I said, I still think Noah Anderson, with my bad Brownlow analytics, I think he should be favourite for the medal. I know a lot of people saying Jordan Dawson. I think there's been a fair few split contributors and said I don't think his start of the season was that great. So we'll see.
I know there have definitely been a couple of games for the Suns where they will have split votes, but I think a lot of them should go to Anderson. He's had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, from what I've watched, he's been by far clear best in a lot of his wins. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So we'll wait and see. Brownlow being in like what 3 or 4 weeks time.
Yeah, it's the week between. End of September. No, it's before the grand final, so it's like about 3 weeks. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Jumping over to the slightly more sad part of the episode, where we talk about this year's retirees that we haven't already talked about, starting with a favorite son from the Adelaide Crows being Matt Crouch.
Yeah, honestly, this is probably my saddest one. Retired due to... this wasn't the eye injury. That was Rory Sloane. I think it was just to prevent further concussions, wasn't it?
Yeah, medical advice.
Yeah, exactly. So, Matt Crouch, it's often forgotten how impactful he was early on, especially in the rise. 2017, in his 4th year, he had an absolutely blinding season. We start at the start, obviously. Round 2, pick 23 of the 2013 National Draft. So, second round pick, 164 games. But a lot of value. And as I said, it took him one season. Took him one season to get to 21 disposals in 2015, averaging, and then didn't drop below for the rest of his career. He was a pill getter. And as I said, he was a 33 disposals per game in 2017, which I think was near, ranked first in total disposals in 2017. So he was the league leader in that regard. Known as a bit more of a link-up player, but still put in some tackling. His inside pressure wasn't too bad. And yeah, I think a very underrated 2024 as well. Like, the games that he did play, and then when he was, you could tell there was a bit of a shift in that inside midfield group that was struggling at that time. So, as I said, still had a bit in him, but unfortunately, just injuries didn't give him the proper chance for a second go at it. As I said, he was just one of those players that you love to have around. There was obviously some questions about his disposal impact, and he was a cheap pill getter, but sometimes you need them. You know, you have to have a balanced midfield. And, you know, if you were to have a cheap pill getter in your side, like Tom Mitchell in his prime, Matt Crouch in his prime, that would be probably one of the biggest two goes-tos for that. You can just guarantee that they'll win enough clearances, they'll distribute the ball enough to where, you know, you're always going to get a bit out the middle if you had those two. Well, kind of specifically talk about Matt Crouch in your side.
Yeah, like he was absolutely tearing it up in 2017. He was one of the key reasons why they made it to a grand final in 17 and why they almost took it from us. Because that was a huge first half from the Crows in that grand final. Thankfully, you know, we prevailed, but like he was such a huge component to that system. And even though, you know, a couple of years later, like they kind of fell away, the fact that they've been able to bounce back in the past couple of years, pretty much post COVID, and become such a formidable side again, like is such a big contribution by him, by his brother as well before he went to St Kilda, and just um how they managed to help rebuild the system around them when players started to retire or move on.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I mean? Like, obviously he didn't have the career continuity, but you know what I mean? They did sort of guide him at the start. Unfortunately after COVID, never really got his body going. But, you know, as I said, yeah, some of his highs were pretty good as well, you know. Was it I'm looking here, 7 games with 40 plus disposals,
Yep.
well, 40 and above. So yeah, as I said, he was a pill getting machine. Top was a 47 against the Bulldogs, which was a loss actually. Very strange. A lot of these high disposal games were losses. A bit weird.
I mean, there's been plenty of games like that in like the Gold Coast Suns careers and a lot of other games like that where they've just gotten high amounts
Yeah,
of ball, but it's still not enough score.
that would have been like Sam Flanders last year. You know what
Yep.
I mean? Anyway,
But yeah,
yeah. So
with
we salute him.
I was going to quickly
Yeah,
run through his
as said.
accolades, but we can salute
Oh,
early.
right, we haven't done that. Okay,
So
I
the
meant,
total
yeah,
of
I guess.
164 games, he was best and fairest 2017, second in 2018, All Australian 2017, Rising Star nominee in 2014, Brownlow medal in 2024. He got 4 votes. And career votes in total was 41. So he was recognised a fair amount by umpires and his peers. Never besides the All Australian note and the best and fairest wasn't too much of a highlight compared to the talent across the system at the time, but in the Crow system was very valued, and it is time that we do an official salute this time. And
Yeah, sorry about that.
hopefully his hip issues will ease up now that he's able to rest and have a much more prosperous retirement.
Yeah, as I said, he had a burst of his career and he couldn't quite sustain it. But, you know, sometimes you got to look after your body and he's got a lot of talent coming through that Adelaide midfield. So, yeah, as I said, he can rest easy now.
Absolutely. All right. After the end of this final series, Will Hoskin-Elliott will be set to retire as well.
Yep, so obviously he was one of the high touted draft picks from that 2011 national draft for the GWS, the first one that they could have draft picks from, and he was very solid. Probably took a bit of a while to get going for GWS. Sort of fell on the wayside. Only had one 20-game 20-game season with GWS. I don't even think he made 50 all up, if my math is correct. And then went to the Magpies, where he lit up. This is the only time he ever scored more than a goal per game, especially the first year when he was at the Magpie, average 1.6, which is the highest in his career. Obviously, a big part of him getting to, or not him getting to the grand final, Collingwood getting to the grand final. Sorry, that's 1.6 in his second year there. that was the premiership year. So,
Yes.
not premiership, you know what I mean. Would again win the premiership in 2023. And yeah, it just was a very, I wouldn't say up and down, but like a very, I'd say mercurial forward that kept his spot through tackling pressure, chase downs, and distribution. But, as I said, that 2018 season, 42 goals, and never kicked more than 20 after that. So, yeah, as I said, a couple of really great seasons. Relatively consistent afterwards, but just like a fit that Collingwood system well. He's just always applying pressure, doing the right things there, and just sort of, complimenting other players like Myercheck, who was dominating at that time.
Yeah, he was kind of like the. He was kind of a second. He was kind of like an underrated player in terms of I guess where he fit into the system that was Collingwood's when they were actually retooling and becoming this big premiership side, because you had all of these other bigger midfielders around him. Obviously, then they had the inclusion of the Dacos boys as well. Not to mention you've got Elliott, who would be kind of mid to forward. You would have um the one that I'm blanking, the Degoe. You would have him through there as well. They got Jack Crispin there,
Yeah.
and they've got they obviously now have Ned Long as well, who's been phenomenal for them. Like, you've got a ton of these like slightly underrated but very high skilled players, and then you would have someone who was just always do the team thing and always play the role that the team required and fit it perfectly when he was on the park.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, it's sort of played a bit of not second fiddle, but you know what I mean. He was definitely a more known for just getting involved, score involvements, and the little things, being a solid marking target to take a bit of pressure off, especially when they didn't have that many key forwards going on. The struggles when they were tossing up between Mason Cox. He was the one that they tried for a while that sort of fell by the way. Ash Johnson,
Yes.
that's right, and others. So, yeah, as I said, still trekking around the sun. I don't think we'll see him in finals unless there's a big collapse. But still 18 games this season, so it's a good bit of depth to come back if they do decide to play him. Could be a
Yes.
sub as well.
Definitely a possible chance of
Option come
him
the
to
final
play a
series.
finals game.
Yeah.
But currently with 242 games, a premiership medallion, and 11 career votes to a Brownlow medal, we salute him, and hopefully post finals he has a wonderful retirement. All right, next on our list is a bit of a journeyman who just couldn't quite break into any AFL side, no matter how much he tried, and that is Quinton Narkle.
Yes, I don't think he is officially delisted, but I'm sorry, he is delisted, not officially retired, but he has gone into the, I think, Northern Territory league. He's signed on to a club already, so I think he definitely wants to take a bit of a break from league football. 59 games, very sporadic player, couple of seasons above 10 games. Last year for the Power and 2021 for the Cats. Just a handy goal scorer. Always put in effort, especially in that Cats era. He was a very big tackler. Unfortunately, as I said, his time at the Power, he was just competing with a lot of small pressure forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously for the Dockers, as I said, he's going to... No, wait, this isn't retiring because the Dockers haven't made any delisted. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so so with the Dockers, with the rise of Murphy Reid and Isaiah Dudley, obviously was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to break into the spot. I'm not even really a depth consideration at this point. I'm just going to take a bit of a break from it, a little retirement. Only picked in round 4, pick 60. So 59 games from that spot is really solid. Another pick from nowhere from the Geelong Cats. Could you be any more.
They just
Could
know
that
how
be
to
any
pick them,
more?
apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, not really much more to say. Like, I always liked him as a sub, especially that Narkle Sparkle. A bit inaccurate as a goal scorer. Finished a goal with 27-26, but could be a bit inaccurate. Especially he scored 410 in his final season for the Power, which I do remember a bit. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, apart from that, just a neat little player.
Yeah, it was just a little kind of one of those players that would just give a little spark whenever he was
Yeah.
like on the park and on the field. Again, getting to see that kind of player run alongside when he got the chance to run alongside the bigger opportunist players, like your Shea
Mm.
Boltons, like your Pal Peppers, like your other fast running midfielders as well, and just the players that you kind of get to have a bit of a brotherhood with, like because being of native descent, of course. He was one of those types of players who really like wanted to get closer to the other indigenous players in the system, and just getting to have that kind of experience for a player like him was definitely very important. And it was always great to watch to see that brotherhood kind of grow across all three teams.
Yeah, I think he just liked being around goals. You know what I mean? I think
I
it
mean
was
that
just
too. Yeah, goal
he definitely
six
had
always a bit
the
of a fun hoot.
he definitely had that excitement about footy. He just wasn't quite clinical enough to shoot it up. But you know, as I said, it was fun to see him try. Uh, T Brownlow bets as well.
Yes,
Just looking at that.
I believe they came from when he was playing at Geelong. But yeah,
Yes.
nothing wrong with having a couple of Brownlow votes to your name.
Yeah, so at least break into the top three of a game, which was always pretty cool.
Yeah. So with that, we do salute you, Quinton Narkle. We hope you have a fantastic retirement up in Darwin. And we shall move on to our next player, being one that's kind of not too surprising. I think people kind of had an inkling that it might have come either this year or next year, but Willie Rioli
Mm.
has hung up the boots.
Yeah, because obviously out of contract at the end of 2016, 2026, but he decided for personal reasons that this was going to be his last year, take a bit of care for himself. Obviously, had a few incidents that were a bit concerning
Mm-hmm.
this year, and he's always had a bit of trouble. Bits and pieces here with mental health. But yeah, as I said, still a premiership player for the Eagles. Um, and, you know, was very good very early. I mean, obviously, it took a while to break into the side, picked our 52 in 2016. But once he did, he was very exciting. 28 goals in his first year and a couple of seasons above 30 for the Power. Last year was a bit disappointing. But, you know, as I said, he popped up here and there. But yeah, as I said, sort of one of those players that, you know, was a bit up and down, but he's still, you know, I wouldn't say he was a high pressure player. I think last year now where he sort of stopped putting in as consistent tackling efforts. He used to be doing a lot more of the small things, 2024, 2023,
Mm-hmm.
especially 2024 when he was out of the few games. Port dropped off a cliff inside 50. So was definitely an important piece, but I just don't think he quite had it together. Like something was off this year. We heard a bit of the outside stuff, and then he decides to retire. So you know what? Some things are more important about football. A bit like Matt Crouch, probably didn't get as many games as his talent could have dictated.
Mm-hmm.
But 109 really solid games. And, you know, as I said, never dipped under a goal a game in his entire career. Relatively accurate too. He knew how to get the cheap goals, and he was a reasonable set shot. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of those players that was very exciting to watch. Again, it comes with the Rioli name. Like all Riolis have always been
Mm,
exciting to watch. That's just how it is. But he had such looked at the game. I feel so much more differently to his relatives and played a much harder on-ball game, even though he was commonly up in the forward line. He was very much like looking to get into those harder positions, willing to take on the opponents to
mm,
get the ball and to go for that goal sneak. It was always a lot more thrilling to kind of watch when he was able to get more involved.
I wouldn't quite say it was harder. I think he was just better at positioning. Like he had a good sense of like handball link ups. He was very good at positioning himself in the space between where you could get the ball to him. But yeah, he could sometimes win the ball himself. You know what I mean? He didn't overly like, you know what I mean? He was actually a somewhat decent clearance player as well. So yeah, I get what you mean there.
Yeah. But with 109 games in total, 58 for Port Adelaide, 51 for West Coast, 151 goals in total, 91 for Port Adelaide, 60 for West Coast, with obviously a premiership medallion with the West Coast Eagles in 2018, and also played for the 2025 Indigenous All Stars team, which happened earlier this year. What a thrilling game that was! We did talk about that way back ago. Um, and
Way back.
he also has one career Brownlow vote to his name.
So less than Quinton Narkle, which I would not have guessed in a vacuum.
A big shock to us, but we hope he does have a very lovely retirement. It would be really great to see if he does go into the NGA system and help some of the Indigenous players up north or out in the west get into the system and help them become potential AFL superstars. But until we see that development happen, of course, we salute you, Willie Rioli, and hope you have a wonderful retirement. All right, on to our next player, one very close to my heart, a player who hasn't technically announced a retirement but is technically delisted. He could go over to the West Coast Eagles for all we know. We don't know if a team is going to pick him up just yet, but Kamdyn McIntosh, because I didn't get to properly talk about him earlier when his final game actually happened. Kamdyn McIntosh has currently finished his time up in the AFL.
Which is to say that he wasn't offered a contract, unfortunately. But from all what I've heard, he's still keen to play. But originally from Perth, so he might go to the Eagles, as people have said. But originally a round 2 pick 31 pick. He had a couple of really solid games early, and then sort of just came that sort of. I know it is being a bit harsh, but he had a bit of inconsistency that plagued him. Well, not plagued him, but you know what I mean. Like he sort of struggled to break in after a really, really good start, and then sort of came good again. Became sort of turned into sort of a more reliable outside player. Maybe his distribution was a bit lacking, but he was very dangerous and very, very quick.
Yes.
And he's one of the rare players where I think his disposal legitimately improved as the years went on. I'm not sure if the stats back it up or whatever, but I just general vibe feeling. You know what I mean? I think he just made a few less errors. When the Tigers started to struggle, they needed a bit more composed ball use. And he was able to hit a few more targets and be a very reliable player. And even this year, provided a bit inside as a sort of not quite an inside midfielder, but a pinch rover, I guess what you would call him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as I said, yeah, just sort of a player that's just did a bit of everything. Maybe not goal kicking. Still got a few.
He still had a few.
But yeah, so yeah, no years over 10, but you know, not unreliable. Fair bit of tackling, fair bit of inside 50, few clearances here and there. And yeah, even a bit rebound when he was forced back on the wing. So yeah, as I said, honestly, as I said, very, very quick off the pace. But sort of a player that's always did what he needed to keep his spot in the side. After what I thought was going to be just a bit of a flash in the pan career. So
Yeah,
that's a lot of credit because that is hard to do.
he ended up becoming one of our best wingmen, and like no one ever really expected that from a guy of like his size. Everyone more expected him to kind of be more of an on-ball midfielder rather than an outside midfielder. He would float down in defense a lot. He would often swap places with Boston. Those two came up together in the same draft. He also would obviously float forwards as well. Happened to be sometimes occasionally in the goal square. We would just get an occasional goal here and there. He was able to kick them long as well, which is always a great hand. But yeah, predominantly he was just that hard runner along the wing, and it really did change how the dynamic worked and how we were able to become so successful in 17 is just we had like players in the right positions for once and were able to really like just move the ball and use the ball so efficiently. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and honestly, like looking at his intercepts, like you said, floating down back, there's actually he's averaged more than 3 for most of his career, so that's always very handy. When your winger can get involved, stop a few chains. Obviously, some of those will be him floating back, but I always find it like if you can get a good winger that gets at least 2 to 3 per game, I think that's always a bit handy in the side. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, he should be a triple premiership player. Unfortunately, he was the one that made way for Marlon Pickett in the 2019 grand final to have, you know, the miracle season that Marlon Pickett had.
Miracle debut. Yeah.
But otherwise, like he was a team man. He was beloved by the entirety of the Richmond Football Club and the fans, of course. It is unfortunate that the management team has decided that this was the end, but again, we're in a rebuilding phase. It was going to have to happen either way, I feel like. Again, we've already delisted 2 other players. Those 2 I expected. But I was hoping, Macca might have been able to go on for 1 more year, but that's okay. So with 213 games, 212 games, 13 games, something like that, one of the 2, 62 goals. And then if I scroll back up to what I was looking at, Rising Star nominee in 2015, obviously Premiership medallions in 17 and 20, and 2 career Brownlow votes.
Same
for
as
now,
Quinton Narkle.
yeah. For now, we salute
King
you,
of company.
K-Mac. Hopefully, we see you for at least 1 more season. Again, you're still young in an AFL sense. So we have hopefully there's an opportunity out there for you somewhere, probably out in the West with the Eagles, but that will remain to be seen once the actual trade period actually starts.
Yeah, and who knows, he might go back to be because he was an original pure Peel player before they merged with Fremantle. So might see if they can pinch him back. Maybe
Yeah, but
he doesn't get a contract with the Eagles.
would he be? Oh yeah, no, because Peel are people with the Eagles or were they with Freo?
Freo.
Do you think Freo
They're
could
still
use
good
him, or
players.
it would be way more comfortable at West Coast?
No, Peel can still pick him up. I'm pretty sure. There's still like players that aren't on Freo's list that play for Peel.
Oh yeah. That's called the VFL sort of system. It's the waffle system. But I think he still wants to be an AFL player first and foremost.
Yeah, well, so that's what I said. If he doesn't get a contract, so we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see.
We will.
He can go play for Swan Districts. Why not?
you just want a homeboy, don't you?
Yeah, I want him.
But yes, for now we salute you, and hopefully we'll see you on the field again soon. Next on our list, there is a good chance. I agree. Next on our list is a Saints defender who has had a couple of mishaps over the years, but otherwise, served his time very well for St Kilda, and that is Jimmy Webster.
What did Webster ever do?
Didn't he knock Jai Simpkin out in a preseason match? He got banned for 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, that was
completely
last year, I think.
not called for.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't called for, but other players have gotten suspended for 4. Other than that,
yeah, I know.
Anyway,
Ruben Jimmy should have been suspended for 4. That's for sure.
Yeah, Jimmy Webster, round 2, pick 42, 2011 draft. A player that St Kilda drafted and probably performed above expected, which was very rare for the Saints. I guess, yeah, 180 for pick 42 is pretty solid. And yeah, never really broke into the side much. Like, he was one of those players that the sub rule probably extended his career a lot. Few injuries here and there, but otherwise just a decent halfbacker. It's really hard to pinpoint his career because it's like one of those players where you'll never, maybe later, but like, you never say, oh, Jimmy Webster's in the side, I'm like disappointed, but he's never solidly entrenched in that best 22. Best season was probably 2018, where he averaged 22 disposals for 17 games. But yeah, probably one of the, I'll say, least statistically or whatever memorable player. He was just a solid rebounder for a team that had probably better rebounders. He was just available there and consistent.
Yeah, he
Enough.
just became one of those fringe players who was able to fill a role when needed, but wasn't always super reliable when St Kilda would have liked. But that was kind of the St Kilda system at the time. They for a long time they just haven't had the right players.
I mean, they had other worse flash in the plan players like
True.
Seb Ross, Jade Gresham. Who's the other one? I guess Blake Acres technically. Jack Stephen.
Yeah.
So for Jimmy Webster to actually still play 180 is like, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 180 games, 4 goals.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no real big accolades, but was a very valiant servant for the Saints, and you can't fault him for that.
Yeah, it's like for how memorable he is a name pretty entrenched in my brain. I got no idea why, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think Webster's just a cool name, maybe.
It is a kind of a cool name. You're not wrong. But
Jimmy
yes,
Webster.
we do salute you as well, Jimmy Webster, and hopefully you have a fantastic retirement. Next on our list is a former Demon turned Eagle who just couldn't really get back to the heights that he once had for himself, and that is Jayden Hunt.
Yeah, and premiership player, isn't he? I think he was in that Demons premiership. I got a feeling he might have been sub in that game.
Honestly, I can't remember.
Yeah. Jayden Hunt. There was a couple of years where he was the best winger, considered best the winger in the comp. Otherwise, he was serviceable. Started off probably a bit more of a defender, sort of rebounder, and sort of worked his way onto the wing. Very low pick, round 4, pick 57 for the 2013 for the Melbourne Demons, where he started his career. Sort of just known for his speed mainly. He was a line breaker. So, for him, not, too many disposals, but pretty solid score involvements per disposal, I guess, if you were to like ratio that a bit. So there was a couple of years where, as I said, 2017 he had 85 score involvements and an average of 4.5 a game, 4.7 I should say, which is pretty good. What? No, 4.4. Wait. Now what am I looking at?
I don't know what are you looking at.
3.9 and 4.5.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at turnovers, which unfortunately, is probably one of the biggest pains of his career. It was a bit turnover prone, as you can get by some of these fast wingers, but took the game on. Very exciting to watch. Changed the rules. One of the few players that will be known for changing the rules. Obviously, them saying you cannot wear headbands that do not, or that have colours outside of your own team's colours. He used to rock the pink headband. The AFL, for whatever reason, disallowed that. Probably because they hate fun. But yeah, I'm not really sure if there's any much to say about him. He also had a good debut year as well.
I think the one big moment that will always be remembered for Jayden Hunt is that big kick after the siren against Geelong when he played for Melbourne. It was an absolute torpedo. Yeah, the absolute monster torpedo.
Yeah,
I still remember that very vividly.
That was one of the best barrels of all time.
Absolutely.
It cleared 60 meters plus some. It would have been like a near 70-meter kick to bounce. So, yeah, as I said, it is probably one of the cleanest connection. But as I said, unfortunately, I think it was one of those ones, especially for the Eagles, where they sort of went when they were still feigning like they could be a decent team. I think the Eagles trade was a bit of a wrong place. I think the Eagles gave up too much for him or whatever, but you know what I mean. It's in hindsight, probably wasn't the right, but he always tried. It was just this year he sort of fell off a bit. So, yeah, Jayden Hunt, 172 gamer.
172 gamer, 58 goals, and one career vote for the Brownlow medal. Tied with
So
Willie
half
Rioli.
of tied with Rioli, half of Quinton Narkle. So, shall we give him a salute? Is he retired or is he
Yes, he's officially
delisted?
retired.
Okay,
So after 172
salute.
games, we salute you, and hopefully you have a wonderful retirement. Last on our retiree list, as far as we know, is a player who I completely forgot actually played for Hawthorn. I'll be honest, I completely forgot. That's how long he's been in the league, and now he's finishing up his time at the Western Bulldogs and officially his career. It's Taylor
Yeah.
Duryea.
Premiership player for the Hawthorn, I'm pretty sure. Twice?
Correct. Correct. He
Yeah.
played, I believe, in 14 and 15.
Yep. So, yeah, and honestly, pretty reliable. He was a, what do you call it, pick? Speculative pick. Round 5, pick 69, very nice, in the 2009 National Draft. And was pretty much a VFL player early, until he could break into the side in 2013. Obviously, it was a pretty strong Hawthorn outfit to break into. And he would turn into one of the more reliable halfbackers in the league. Obviously playing second fiddle to players like Sewell, Hodge. Who was the other one as well? There's one I'm forgetting that I probably shouldn't. I'm blanking at the moment. But
Brian
yeah.
Lake, maybe?
Well, not really a halfbacker, but I meant part of that defense.
I'm just trying to think of
anyway,
players that are really hard to remember.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so honestly, really strong pair of hands too. He was part of that Hawthorn Switch initiative in that mid 2000s, where they just switched the ball a hell of a lot to try and find avenues. Yeah, as I said, he was sort of just one of those players that you could always rely on him. He was a very solid kick. He was yeah. Unfortunately, he was a fairly reliable player in terms of his body. And then unfortunately, when he went to the Bulldogs, that sort of fell apart. Got a few injuries. Got to the grand final with the Bulldogs.
Yes.
25 game season there, and that was relatively solid. But I would argue after that he dropped off a lot, and was a bit inconsistent. But as I said, considering he was sort of just depth for those players. He was called on a lot, so he was one of those players that were like, yeah, the Bulldogs, they don't have any halfbackers, so we're going to keep on playing you until we are able to patch that up. He was able to do that, or they were able to do that, so he feels it's time to pack it up now, which is probably fair enough. But, as I said, relatively solid halfbacker. Again, one of those players that was very good at getting involved in the exciting change, while still being defensively reliable. Probably not going to have too many accolades, but he definitely was a very important premiership player.
Yes, for the Hawthorn Premiership sides, he definitely became an important cog especially during those finals campaigns. But in terms of his influence at the Dogs, I definitely think that was more off-field influence than on. But it's very admirable of him to still try to forge a career, even if he got 8 one-year contract extensions rather than anything substantial. Like,
Yeah,
it's rough when you look at it that regard because there's no job security when you look at it like that. But he gave it his all despite his injury woes, especially after the COVID periods.
And not much money was coming into that backline contract. he would have been eating the ramen noodles after the games, I think. All those money's going to players like Treloar, Bontempelli.
Yeah, unfortunately, the money would have gone to the higher tier midfield players. Not so much into the back line. That's why the back line is the way that it is. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But
you look at it that way, probably good value for money player if he was.
yeah, absolutely. I think if his body was able to keep up, I think he would have been probably one of the key players that would have rebuilt their defense around, if possible. But
yeah, I guess. Like, I get what you mean. Like, more in 2020, 2021 sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I said it was like him and Johannesson. It was sort of like it was a bit of a, man, if they could get their body right, they would have helped some of that cohesion. But instead, unfortunately, it was just a bit of time into players that would never quite make it. But 219 games in the AFL is not anything to scoff at.
Absolutely.
And there was a lot of quality in those games. So, yeah.
219 games, 25 goals, which, it's not too uncommon for halfbackers to kick goals, but it's always going to be a lesser number. Obviously, the 2014-2015 premierships, but this is where he calls time, and hopefully, with our salutes, he has a wonderful retirement, doing whatever he wants to do with the rest of his life. Definitely continue.
I don't know why he screams. I don't know if it's just like that era of Hawthorn, but he seems like assistant coach sort of material. You know what I mean? It's like, I just feel like maybe that's just because I said he played for Hawthorn in that era, but I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that.
Got it in my bones. Got it in my bones.
I mean, yeah, you look at all of the kind of players and other assistant coaches that went through Hawthorn during that time, and a few of them are either their own head coaches, or they're assistant coaches at other clubs, or coaches in other areas at other clubs, or just like players doing other AFL related things at other clubs. Like, that Hawthorn system at the time was one of the best to go through.
So much value out of it, yeah.
And even if you're a coach that went through it slightly before, like the 2005 to 2010 era, like, say, Dimmer, Chris Fagan, Bevo, there are a bunch of coaches that went through there that are currently premiership coaches now. Like, that,
I was going to say, it's like, technically the 2004 grand final had a lot of players now that are now in the coaching system / been doing other things.
Yeah,
Kingsley, Hardwick, the Scott brothers. There's one other, I think.
There's definitely a couple of others. I'm blanking right now, but I know there's a few.
Well, technically, Jocko. I mean, I know he did get moved on from Melbourne, but if he goes on, he will be an assistant still that was involved in that game.
Yes. He's one of the. Jocko has always been one of those coaches, whether head coach or assistant coach, that has such a pivotal role in any system that he's been in. And hopefully, he'll. I guarantee. I
just can't imagine him being away from football.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be away for too long. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our retirements. For now, nothing else has been retired as we started recording, as far as I'm aware. But we're going to now jump over to our preseason predictions. So what we got wrong at the start.
I'll give you like a bit of a breaking news.
Go on.
Although we don't normally comment on this stuff, Chris Davies has departed Alberton, so Port Adelaide are making more changes there. The general manager is departing after 11 years of football.
I see.
Program management. So yeah, Port will be going in with a new GM. So gonna make an interesting trade period, fresh off the bank.
You think
players to move around?
Do you think Josh Carr has having a lot of say in terms of the kind of people he's having around him, including GM?
Well, I think they needed a clean out, so I'm just happy that that's sort of happening. I mean, obviously, you never want to see people fired or moved. Like, you always want to say, okay, we need to move on from these players, but I hope they find home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, as I said, I'm just glad that things are changing. So I thought I'd just mention that as a little final tack on. Just seemed relevant since we're talking about moving on from people or players.
It is relevant. Delistings and stuff we'll talk about once the entire season is over, because obviously we'll have all of the teams do their delistings, the trade period, draft, etc., etc. But right now we're going to jump over to our original preseason predictions that we did at the start of the season, and compare that to obviously where the top 8 and the rest of the teams ended up. Pretty much what we got right, what we got wrong. But first we'll start off with what we decided
As in you
is
want us to run down the ladder?
this list. There's two lists here. One being your list, the other being my list. So we'll start off with your list because I have that one on top. So you put
Yep.
Geelong, Brisbane, GWS, Port Adelaide. That was very wrong. Hawthorn, Freo, Sydney, Collingwood, Carlton, Adelaide, Melbourne, the Western Bulldogs, the Gold Coast Suns, St Kilda, the Bombers, North Melbourne, West Coast, and Richmond.
I think in trends this ladder was okay. But the ones that are wrong are really wrong. And there was some that just didn't put far enough. Like Collingwood going up, was right, but obviously not quite enough. Sydney dropping a bit, right, but not quite enough. Adelaide rising, right, but not quite enough. Then you got the flat out wrongs, which was Port Adelaide. I would say it's the biggest misstep.
Yep.
Then the Gold Coast, I would say, is the next biggest misstep, and probably the Bulldogs I didn't give enough credit to. I did say in my range that I think they could finish ninth, so I technically wasn't there when I was giving that wrong in that regard, but I was definitely a bit too harsh on them, all things considered.
Yeah, and honestly, when you look at my list in comparison, I'm not that far off the same kind of guesses. So we had both Brisbane and Geelong top two. Obviously, they only Geelong finished top two. Brisbane did finish top four. No, sorry, top five.
Mhm.
And then we put GWS at third. That's actually fairly accurate, although they are a little bit lower, of course. They finished fifth. Didn't
Not
they?
much between, yeah.
It finished just outside top four. But then we both had Port Adelaide in top four. How wrong we were on that one. We both had
Yeah.
Hawthorn in the top five. Hawks still playing finals, but they did finish eighth. I had Sydney at sixth. You had Sydney at seventh. Again, they were only slightly out of range. If they had won just like one or two more games, they would have had a better shot. Fremantle, we both had in the top eight, but I had them in opposite positions. I believe I'm slightly... No, you are technically correct because they get their home final.
I was bang on.
You were bang on. I was one off. And then I had Carlton in my top eight. How wrong I was on that one. But we both had Adelaide outside of the top eight. We had them not as low as they finished in 2024.
Yeah.
But no one was expecting them to jump this high.
I think Adelaide were a few people smokies. I think a lot of people still put them near the bottom. So I still think overall that wasn't too bad.
And then obviously I had Collingwood outside of the top 10. I had Collingwood at 10th. You had them just inside the top 8. Again, they finished a little bit higher than that. But that was also a very 50-50 kind of thing because they had a bit of that fall off as well in 24. Melbourne not making it, both agree that was bang on, even though did they finish 11th or they finished lower? I can't remember.
I think it was
actually 11th, I have it 12th. Here. They finished 14th. There you go.
14th.
14th. That's right. So we weren't too far off. The Western Bulldogs
had a percentage of 93.3.
Yeah,
pretty much explains.
They had some of the lowest percentage outside of that, like 1 to 15 range.
Of the teams around them.
Yeah. With the Western Bulldogs, we both had at 12th. We definitely underrated them a little bit. Again, I think that was primarily based on their defense, and we didn't really look too much into their depth because I think they had a fair few injuries at the time going into this season.
Yeah, their depth over. I thought they would have a wretched start to the season, but they ended up doing well then. And then the back half was sort of what I predicted. I thought it would be like a too little, too late sort of thing, but clearly they did enough there.
Yes. Then obviously the Bombers, we didn't really... we expected them to do this just based on kind of form, but we weren't expecting them to do this based on injury, which is probably the more unfortunate side of things. Because I think if they didn't have as many injuries that they did have, I think they would have finished higher.
Yeah, probably would have finished probably above Melbourne, maybe.
I think they would have pushed like 10th or 13th. I think they would have been able to push into.
It's debatable.
But otherwise, we were bang on in their ladder position. They finished 15th.
Yeah, we got pretty good on this bottom part of the ladder.
And then North Melbourne finishing 16th. That was pretty much bang on right from the get-go. Again, during the season, they showed positive signs, but not enough to really give them credit where credit was due. then obviously Richmond and West Coast were flip-flopped, and that's primarily
Yeah.
because no one expected Richmond to beat Carlton, beat the Gold Coast Suns, and the other two wins that we got that I'm currently blanking on.
Like I predicted Richmond to get 2 to 3 wins. I just didn't expect West Coast to get 1.
Yeah,
That was
that's a St Kilda issue, that West Coast win.
yeah. But yeah, exactly. So
But yeah,
yeah, it's
otherwise
pretty interesting.
the Suns, I think, were the only major team we didn't give enough credit to preseason.
Yeah, and I guess that was the thing where, as I said, I didn't like the way that they were playing some of their players, but then right off the bat, they changed a lot. Again, and we're gonna go into like more specific changes and what we predicted, what we did. We'll probably do that when we do a wrap up, which we probably will do sometime in the off season. Won't be too in depth, but we'll look at a few more specific things. But
Yes.
in terms of the Gold Coast, as I said, it's a very funny thing where they took a 30 plus disposal player, one of the leading disposal getters in the league, and just are like, yeah, you're not on the inside midfield anymore. Sam Flanders.
Yes.
It'll be one of the weirder seasons if he just like doesn't turn into a player. Because he was so much of the pill last year to just be like stuck on a wing this year.
But I mean, also like the inclusion of John Noble and Daniel Rioli out of halfback completely completely revitalized how their backline looked.
Yeah. I just think it's just the gelling of the inside midfield.
Oh, that's true. I mean, have you like the seasons that Anderson, Rowell, and Miller had? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah. I think probably I won't say like they're the best inside midfield, but like stats wise, they're probably the best. Like if you like got their player rankings and just added them all together, it'll be them and the Western Bulldogs that had the most points skewed to the middle.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that.
Inside midfield. Inside. Yes. Like there's a big drop off to the outside midfield.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. Jumping over now to the other side of the AFL, and that is the women's side. We're going to do a brief recap of the first couple of weeks, just have a look at where the teams are sitting on the ladder. We probably won't go into depth on the fixture too much, just because it's still very early in terms of where teams are sitting. But we can just do a quick little rundown as to like how teams are kind of looking. So you want to start?
Just go round by round, I think, and just the notable things to happen. One of them is Carlton. We're going to talk about a bit. They're probably the biggest surprise packet out of the season so far. Undefeated. In the first round, they were able to beat Collingwood 45-21 and get a few more wins after that. Eagles, Woolwich Marooa, as they are now, have started off very well. Ella Roberts taking the game on fire. Sydney have improved after last year, and on the flip side, Richmond are winless. Sydney taking their first game in that first round with a lot of good debuts. How good does Chloe Molloy look? She's kicking goals and
Zippy
taking
Fish
names.
Are unbelievable already, and it's so early on. It's so good to see Molloy back out there too after her injury.
Yeah. No, absolutely. As I said, it is absolutely ridiculous. Talking about ridiculous, first game wasn't as dominant as the next couple, but the Kangaroos are absolutely smashing it at the moment. Essendon, they're also undefeated. Nam looked to be very solid. Again, Quana also looked to be solid, but had that surprise loss to Uriuk in that first round. But going to the second round, I think the most notable thing was some of the floggings. Nam 89-15 against Uriuk. Sydney 103-21 against Gold Coast. Brisbane 105-35 against Waliella / Freo. And Kangaroos 87, Yardapuldi 15. It was around a big scores. We were happy to see the average score rising this year. But at the same time, it is a bit disappointing to see some of the parity in the competition. apart from that, I don't think there was actually that many upsets in that round. Everything just sort of went to plan.
It's just unfortunate that my first AFLW game, which was the Richmond Bulldogs game, ended up being a loss, because it would have been nice to see a win on my first go
I
around.
guess that was actually an upset.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
fairly
Western
even up in the
Bulldogs.
first half, although I believe the Dogs were still in front at halftime.
Mm.
But yeah, just that they're despite the fact we were able to run with them in that third, the complete shutdown that they did in the fourth was just unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. So despite the tough start, the Western Bulldogs look a lot better than previous years. And then we'll go to round 3. Essendon winning the Dreamtime match
Yes.
was pretty important. The Eagles coming back from a massive, well, not massive deficit, but a pretty solid deficit in the last. They were 27-10 in the last quarter before Wellich Marrawah kicked 5 goals, with Ella Roberts kicking 2 of those and having such importance. Daglish kicking 2 in that quarter as well. So yeah, as I said, West Coast looking solid. I might see if I can go down on Port Adelaide / Yada Pulti, because they are 2 reasonably matched teams, and I wouldn't mind seeing that if I could. Going to the other games, again, Sydney getting that win, just eking out the victory over Geelong. Then Yada Pulti getting the highest AFLW score of 108 on Saturday against Gold Coast. To only then lose it to the game I mentioned earlier, Wally up Kangaroos 114-14. The first 100-point victory and the first the first plus 110 scored then. Yes, 114 for the Kangaroos.
The Roos knocked
It was a
2 birds out with 1 stone by doing that. It's really, really good to see the league has grown so much just in these first couple of weeks in terms of output, but the fact that there is still also such a vast difference between all of the teams shows there is still a lot of talent to be unearthed.
Yeah, exactly. And the last game obviously is a bit to mention, because Carlton beat Brisbane, who looked to be like one of the better teams this year. So as I said, despite Carlton not getting the wood in their second game, they've won 2 out of 3 and look very promising.
Yes.
As I said, considering some of the teams that are making up the back half lost a bit of percentage, Carlton look actually pretty solid. So, if they can get a few more games, they might be a surprise packet into the 8.
To put it into perspective in terms of percentage, at 18th position is the Gold Coast Suns with 32.9 percentage. And in first position is the Kangaroos with 504 percentage.
500.
It's insane. And we already knew going in that the Roos were going to be one of the harder teams to beat. Again, they've proven this time and again that they're an insane team in the AFLW in comparison to the men's team, where I feel like the men's could actually learn a lot from them. But that's the fact that the other teams, you've got Melbourne in second, Sydney in third, the Bombers in fourth, Hawthorn fifth, Adelaide sixth, Carlton seventh, the Eagles in eighth. The fact that all of these teams are able to now contend and have built their teams really well for this season, and could very much take it up to the Roos, and have more contention for the top 8. And I know it's still very early. It's definitely too early to tell, but you can just see by some of the performances that it could be a tighter season going on.
I honestly, to be honest, with how good the Roos were, I would not be putting them to lose a game this season. I know that's the early crow, but they do look a league above. I will say it is good to see a couple of the newer teams coming up. I do think, as I said, Carlton just taking that game off Brisbane, who already dropped a game. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's going to be really interesting to see, in another couple of weeks, where everyone currently sits. Because you've got teams currently sitting outside the top 8 that could very well just catapult into the top 8. But it's, whilst the strength of schedule is kind of all over the place when it comes to the AFLW, the fact that there are still opportunities for a lot of these teams to really show up and perform and, very much open the door to some better opportunities is what makes the AFLW exciting for this season.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where, look, there's a few teams that are just so disappointing. Like GWS, probably it's going to be a tough year for them. Very hard to get excited about them. Hopefully they'll rebuild. Gold Coast is surprisingly crap. I thought they might do a bit better, but a lot of the teams are 16 upwards. I know Geelong haven't won a game this year, but they've got a few exciting players. Same with Richmond. Wally up, even though they did get that win early on with that tanked percentage, should go a bit better against the non-top teams. I think that might just be a bit of a fixturing quirk. But still, as I said, it'll be good to see. Like the 5 to 10 race should be fairly open. As I said, it's just I think there is a bit of a step between first and the rest of the competition, and I think there will be a gap that presents himself between 2, 3, and 4. Once that scheduling sort of mellows itself out. Because as I said, you can just get a few skewed results considering if you get a decent run early versus a decent run late. We've seen a lot of teams the back half a year after a tough start. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, I am still going to go to the Freo games, obviously. Missed out that first week with sickness, but I'll still be there. And as I said, I might head down to Mineral for Wallich Marawa versus Yatapulti. Because I got my Indigenous Port Guernsey. That was sort of the combined Indigenous pride.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be rocking that, supporting the girls there. But I am also like, you know what? I like a lot of the Eagles, so even if they win, I won't be too disappointed.
I'm looking at the next home game to hopefully be the one that I go to next. It'll be on the 14th, I believe. It's a Sunday. But we have a couple of projects in the works with HSP, so I can't guarantee that I will be able to get to it at that date. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping I can make it work. But that is enough for the AFLW for now. We're going to now jump over to preview week 1 of the AFL Men's Finals, starting with the top 4 clashes. We're actually starting off first.
I normally do. It's just one normally. It used to be one of them was Friday and the other one was Sunday. But now they've moved it to Thursday, which I don't mind. I like the free day for both the state leagues and the AFLW to utilize. But first week, we're talking about it's the game that's, maybe a bit controversial. But in terms of recent history, these two teams put out banger after banger.
Absolutely. And we only have to look as far as a couple of weeks ago to see how intense like a game between these two teams are. And of course, we're talking about the Adelaide Crows and Collingwood over at the Adelaide Oval.
-7 for Adelaide in terms of total margin this year, because they've played twice. Collingwood by 10 the first time at the EG, and Adelaide by 3 at the Not G. And it was so weird. Adelaide Oval. Yeah, as I said, it was a surprisingly defensive affair where Collingwood's what do you call it? The defense. Had that broken down at that stage?
Yes, it had kind of broken down a bit because I had no how. They were still missing Bobby Hill, which they still are missing Bobby Hill. And I think Darcy Moore's output had kind of gotten quelled a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it's been that great without what's his name behind him? How, as you mentioned. So
but in this game, it actually managed to kind of hold up fairly well. Or the game prior, of course. And that's why, apart from like their insane midfield work and a lot of really good work from both of the Dacos boys, they managed to stay in it, even though Adelaide managed to take away those 4 points.
Yeah, exactly. So the interesting thing is, does anything change from last time? Does it turn into a more offensive battle that we were expecting when Adelaide had that first? Can Collingwood curb some of that? through their ball use, as I said, they can sometimes minimize the turnovers, which Adelaide do score a lot. So it might be another case of both teams trying to control the ball, maybe like settling on offense to try and just outmuscle, using the sporadicness of Adelaide would outmuscle and key forward advantage, whilst Collingwood would try and pierce that defense through turnovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting contest. I think most people Adelaide, and I agree. But I think most people have an inkling that this might be a bit of a classic, and we're not going to bring too much of the off-field stuff into this, but as I said, it is set up to have a bit of niggle going into this game.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yeah, like obviously the big concern with the Crows, especially if you're passionate about the stuff that's been happening off field, is if they lose, it does open up a spot for Rankin in the grand final if they make the rest of the way through. If they win, he doesn't play at all. So if you're into that side of things, as passionate as I am at least about it, you definitely want the Crows to win. But in terms of an actual genuine classic matchup between these two teams, honestly, it could go either way, even if we're just basing it off recency.
Oh, I'm going for the Crows out in straight sets timeline. That'll be.
I mean, I would love that as well. Honestly, both works for me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it would mean Collingwood go to a prelim. I would sacrifice that. If I knew that they were going to go out in straight sets, I would allow Collingwood to go to the prelim.
Yeah, that's very fair. But yeah, like
probably the best matchup for Collingwood to get if they were going to face first.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, for Collingwood, they still have no Bobby Hill, no Jeremy Howe. Howe's maybe touted back to come at the prelim if they make it.
If they make it, yeah.
If Darcy Moore's output is back on the rise, they should have a better time defensively. However, that will also again depend on their offensive output, the work they do around the ball in that midfield against the dominating side that is Adelaide. But
yeah, exactly.
I think it's definitely leading Crow's favor. I am preferring it to be Crow's favor right now, but honestly, the ins and outs could actually change the way we look at this game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, jumping over to our Friday night game at the MCG, it's Geelong hosting the Brisbane Lions. And for all you Cats fans, the only way you're getting a game at Kardinia Park is if all 4 finals are held in Melbourne, okay? You need to chill out about that.
They have every right to be upset. As I said, it is a bit silly in my mind, but, it is at the G, and it's the Cats versus Brisbane, and...
Like, this is easily going to be a 90k crowd. Easily.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah. Brisbane have had the wood over Geelong the last few games, so it's going to be very interesting, because Geelong weren't tested in the back half of the season. Brisbane were tested, and they did look a bit shaky, but they also stood up enough times.
They did.
As Fagan said, it's probably their best regular season under him, which is amazing to think about, really, when it's, it's felt like they've performed higher sometimes.
Well,
this is just...
In recent years, have they finished top 4? Because they didn't finish top 4 last year.
Really?
They won it from 5th.
Yeah, they've always been like a 5th and 6th sort of team. I think they have reached 4th, but not with the amount of wins that they've had this year. So, yeah, as I said, I think this is the most wins in under Chris Fagan with whatever it was this season.
I can't remember, but they finished 3rd, so double chance. Unfortunately, you have to travel, but it's on the MCG, a ground that you know how to win on, you know how to structure well on. So it's going to be a real test to see. One, if the Lions can still hold up and adapt, which they have been able to do, even in the games where they have been shaky. And for the Cats, is this a test that defines the rest of your final series, or is it just going to be another obstacle you overcome with ease?
Yeah, and honestly, this is very much a depends game. I think this is like the most prone to like big score. I think this was like going to be very similar.
Yeah.
Was it prelim? Where it's going to be hard to like book a team that gets ahead, because again, once Lions get a few clearances, they're going to score a bit. I don't think Geelong's got enough defence to stop that up. But Brisbane, if Geelong do get territory, their defence might be a bit exposed because it hasn't been that great. I even think maybe last year the defence was a bit better, especially coming into finals. And even then, it was pretty much a B- defence. You know what I mean? A few solid players back there. Obviously, Harris Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
Starcevich has been a bit off this year.
He has been
And
out in and
obviously
out with
the
injury. Yeah.
The injury to what's his name? Not Wilmot.
Lester?
No,
Gardner?
one that's out for the season. Small forward.
Oh,
It is Wilmot.
no, Wilmot isn't a small forward. He plays on the wing.
No, small defender.
Oh, was the one that came back and then got injured again? I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway,
Oh,
they're missing a player.
Oh, now it's gonna really bug me now.
I'm just gonna look at the injury list.
I know who it is because I was.
Answorth.
That's right.
Answorth. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the player I was thinking of, but that Answorth.
You're thinking
of
Jack Payne.
No, actually, I wasn't. I was thinking of
McCarthy?
No. He's gonna really annoy me now. I was there for the game where he came back and then immediately went out again.
Coleman.
Yes, Kitty Coleman. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So again, bit of a coin toss. Yeah, I got a feeling Brisbane might still win out. I just got that feeling. I'm not sure why, but I'll tip Brisbane.
I would definitely like to lean towards Brisbane on this one. I think definitely because they have a lot more tenacity because they've had to face so many challenges in the second half and been able to adapt to those challenges. And I think Geelong is going to really kind of be that pinnacle in terms of how they face the rest of September. Because honestly, when I look at the rest of the top 8, I think the Lions could easily beat most of these teams. It's just I think
it's one of those things where I think it's going to be a close contest, and you're going to it's going to be dangerous next week, and I think whoever loses still win.
Yeah,
comfortably enough, depending on what happens.
That's the way I'm kind of looking at it. But I would love the Lions to go straight onto a prelim. It would be fantastic for them, I think. And again, they're defending their premiership title. I kind of want to see them. As much as I would love Freo or the Suns or the Giants to get their maiden victory, I am also not opposed to the Lions going back to back.
Yeah. Shall we head to the elims, which are very interesting?
They are, both on Saturday, one after the other. Starting off with the Giants hosting Hawthorn at NG Stadium. And this one, actually, honestly, I think both of these could be extremely close. But I think the matchup between the Giants and the Hawks is the more interesting of the two.
Because it's been an underrated sort of matchup too, because, again, last 3 matches have been very close. Hawthorn by 12 this year, GWS by 2 the year before that, and Hawthorn by 6 the year before that. In every case, the home team has won. But yeah, as I said, 2 teams which have been good, but then randomly not good, I would say, is the defining traits for these two. But in terms of playstyle, very, very similar. Both like to play on the outside, both concede a bit of territory center, but shape out well outside of that. The obvious difference is that the Giants have one of the best forward lines, and Hawthorn have players. They convert. Gunston's been very good, but you would still pick Hogan over Gunston.
Yeah.
Joel's been serviceable. Kashadir's been getting back in, but still, trying. But as I said, it's been interesting. It's really hard to pinpoint because, as I said, I think Hawthorn, in terms of movement, can be a lot more consistent. And the Giants do give up a bit of movement. Can see a lot of inside 50s. Hawthorn can actually convert if they get the ball down there enough. So I do think that opens the door for Hawthorn to win. But I think you'd just edge toward Giants just because they have more consistent pieces, and especially when it's a final. You
Yeah.
know, you're not playing your best football early. It's probably going to be a bit of a trudge. So I think the Giants are just going to have a period where they get a few goals in a row. Maybe Kamdyn bangs a few back to back. Maybe it's Hogan. And yeah, as I said, even though Hawks have those top, I just think Giants forwards are in enough form where that won't matter as much.
Do you think Hawthorn should roll the dice on Josh Weddle coming back? Because
Maybe.
he played managed minutes in the VFL last week and seemed to come out of it okay. I assume he has to pass training sessions this week to guarantee if he plays or
Yeah.
not. But do you think they should roll the dice?
Well, I think it's that runoff halfback, isn't it? But it's sort of like that weird thing where it's like, if you look at it analytically, it's like, well, GWS don't like bomb the ball in there, so maybe there's not a need for such a deep rebound defender. But depending on their matchups, you know what I mean? If they, play Weddle, and remember, Weddle did play forward as well. So like that versatility of him is very key, especially for don't get
Yeah.
as I said, having that extra piece to try and break that Sam Taylor, Jack Buckley defensive core, and Josh Weddle, who can lead up very high, probably a bit better option than Cal Shadir in the guard. You know what I mean? Especially if they don't play Chol. You know what I mean? Like, I reckon they could forego playing Chol, which might be a bit controversial to play a player like Weddle, but yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting announcement. But overall, I'm just going Giants, but this is like the next most 50-50 one for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm honestly very on the fence on this one. Again, I would like to see Giants make their way through. But also, it could be the return of Hockball once again. They actually make their way through a decent final series.
Yeah, it would be weird if they did lose this final and technically have a worse season than last year. I don't know what Hawthorn fans would think of that, because on one side, it's been a good year for most teams. You know what I mean? Like, they're not that far away from any of these two teams, and you could say they're maybe a bit unlucky to go in that one. But if they do, it's like you wouldn't help but feel a bit disappointed.
Yeah, from the couple of Hawks fans that I've spoken to, they're not super confident this final series like they were
No.
last season. Um, but it would be really actually interesting to see if if they are able to kind of surpass. Maybe not surpass, because there's no guarantee they'll make the grand final, of course. But like if they're able to make it to the same point as they did last season.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, but yeah, as I said, it's no guarantees really, I'd say. That's the biggest thing out of this game, but yeah, again, GWS, just don't crap the bed. As I said, going back to back last year, they will want a good final series. Sorry, out in straight sets, I should say. Out in straight sets and both conceding fourth quarter leads.
Yeah,
You definitely want to be a bit more headstrong. Again, in a different timeline, Brisbane don't win the held out against them,
true.
Would have been weird.
Definitely. But let's jump over now to our last game, being played out in the West, with Fremantle hosting the Gold Coast Suns on their very first finals campaign.
Yeah, it's about that. I feel like this is the clearest favorite.
It's
Sure that.
definitely gonna be very challenging, considering the Suns are gonna be encountering a team with like 70,000 people behind them.
Well, not 70,000 people in the stadium, but yeah.
How much can Optus seat?
Of the Scunfit.
Is it like
50 odd.
well, it's gonna be 50 odd people, you know what I mean? 50k odd
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a very,
There'll be a
very
few people on the roof.
one-sided crowd for this match.
Yeah, exactly. And, there'll be a bit of pressure on. But yeah, as I said, the biggest disappointing thing is the Suns just didn't get enough done in the back half. Those couple of games dropped to Port and Richmond prevent them from having a very good chance to win their first to you would expect to lose. But Freo, they just, as I said, they're solid enough. And I think their back half has been really consistent, but they still don't have that clinicalness about them.
Yeah, there's
So
still
to keep it in,
patches.
there, Suns will have to be very disciplined in defending the Tolls back, which they were. I think they were pretty unlucky to lose against Freo this year, where it was 64-75. Freo were straight shooting in a pretty wet and miserable game. But yeah, the biggest thing for Suns is to keep the entries to a minimum for Freo. If they can do that, their biggest upside is the fact that they get a lot of ball from clearances turn into score. They're a fairly good, decent stoppage team, and Freo can be a bit porous there. So if Suns are to win, they're going to have to dominate in the stoppages, open up scoring that way. But if that doesn't happen, I imagine Freo win this comfortably, but not easily.
Yeah, I'm very much leaning towards Freo winning this kind of outright, but I think the Suns will make it very difficult for them to make that happen. But I think Freo will have a clear lead by the fourth quarter to establish them as a very important threat to the rest of the top eight. Because I think when you look at a lot of these sides, you definitely see Adelaide, Geelong, and probably Brisbane as the more dominant favorites. But I think Freo is one of the few teams that can very much contend with all three of those.
Yeah, again, it's like you wouldn't want to face Freo in an individual game, but you wouldn't think that they would make their way to the grand final. But I would be very surprised if they didn't get a win. If not to, as I said, I could definitely see him in the prelims. But yeah.
It's gonna be a very interesting final series.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, I just gonna check who would they play the loser of. It's a predictor, isn't it? Yeah. They will play the loser of Geelong and Brisbane.
I thought so.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is as I said, there's a fair few interesting permutations after that match. If Brisbane lose, then it's Freo trying to seek their revenge, or a Q clash. And if the Cats lose, then it's Freo trying to get another surprise win over the Cats. Done that a couple of times, I'm pretty sure. There's that famous one where they won in Kamdyn, and I think they beat him in the finals as well another time.
That might have been the 2013 final series when final was last played in Kamdyn Park.
Yeah, and as for the other matchup, obviously the loser of Adelaide and Collingwood will face the winner of GWS versus Hawthorn.
Yes.
So the interesting matchups would probably... I don't think there is that many interesting matchups, but I guess Collingwood and GWS sometimes don't like each other.
Well, yeah, you have to look at it like if the Giants or Hawthorn have to travel to Adelaide are absolutely going to stomp them, honestly. Yeah. As much as going out in straight sets would be fantastic for the Crows.
Yeah.
The realistic thing is that if the Crows end up losing this qualifier, they will stomp the Giants or the Hawks. Whereas if you look at the Giants or Hawthorn facing Collingwood, it's a much more even matchup.
But there is a good scenario that I've just seen. Adelaide beats Collingwood, GWS beats Hawthorn, GWS beats Collingwood, and then no one gets the grand final advantage come the rest of the season. I think as someone against Vic bias, that would be the best outcome. I'm hoping for it.
Well, you have to rely on Geelong losing to Brisbane and then losing the game after that.
Well, it's not home ground advantage because they don't play at the MCG.
They play a lot of games at the MCG. They're just more referred to as away games.
Because they get shafted, I don't mind them. Like, if they make the grand final, I don't consider that like a Vic bias victory. I'm like, I can concede Geelong getting to the grand final and playing at the G.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, you look at it the other way. Like, we could genuinely have an all interstate prelim, being the Crows, the Lions, the Giants, and either Freo or the Suns. Like, that's the crazy thing.
It's not that far off. As I said, it really depends. Like that Brisbane versus Geelong. I do think Geelong's going to make their way to it, but it's not that far out of the question either.
Yeah, it's not entirely out of the question, but it's also teetering on unfeasible that Geelong, especially Geelong, won't make it to the prelim.
Well, after such a good, I know they had that easy schedule, but then it would just be a bit of a pretty big collapse for Geelong not to make a prelim. But it could happen. Who knows? Finals is a weird beast indeed.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of episode 74. Like, we covered a ton this week. There was so much to talk about, and realistically, we're only just getting started because the final series is going to give us so much information, and like I cannot wait because we've only got a couple of days to go until the first one starts, and we're into the best part of the season, which sadly is the end of the season, but it's still the best part of the season. That's the upside and the downside to all sports, sadly. But yes, that does bring us to the end of episode 74. Thank you all so much for coming to watch, coming to listen, coming to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. Please be sure to leave a comment down below as well for either platform. Give us some feedback. Give us some more stuff to talk about and stuff to do in the off season, because we're gonna run out of stuff pretty quickly, I feel. But otherwise, I'm hopefully back into my regular cycle of streaming and things. I've got a couple of HSP plans coming up. My production team, of course, Hammer and Shield Productions. So that'll be all posted on my socials if you want to go check out what we get up to. Granted, I don't think we have anything this week, but it's next week and the week after. We've got some big stuff planned. So stay tuned for that. Are you having a busy week this week?
Not anything that's exciting enough to tell stream. I did do the stream last week with Tiffy. That will continue on. We're going down the hottest 100, re-ranking them.
I did spot that you two were doing that, which is very exciting.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not that controversial as I thought it might be. But we're getting to the... She was going to try and do it all in one stream, and yeah, there's no way this is going to happen, but Tiffy's just like fun to hang around and talk to, so I was like, we'll just figure it out.
She's very determined sometimes as well.
Yeah. We got to 50. But unfortunately, she's a yapper, I'm a yap. So we're going to separate the last 50 between 3 streams, which is probably what we could have done to start with. So, yeah. So hopefully, if you want to do that, we might do some What's the Music if you've ever played that. So, yeah. So that will be probably Friday. Will be the next one. And then, yeah, just check her socials out if you want to do that. Epic Tiffy. Yes. Really good friend of ours.
She is friend of the show, or one might say. Although she has not appeared on the show, she's very much a friend.
Big NRL fan. She'll be going for the Broncos in this off season.
But yeah, I'm pretty much hoping to do some more streams and stuff. Because I don't think I've got too much fun. Obviously, Father's Day is also this weekend. So I'll be around on the Sunday. I probably might do a late stream on that day, but I should be live otherwise on Saturday or Friday or whenever else I have time to. So yeah, please go check all the socials out and stuff like that. But until then, hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will see you all next week for episode 75 after week 1 of the finals has concluded. So until then, take care.